Right. I think that's everybody in who was in the waiting room. Good morning and good afternoon. Thanks to everybody who has joined us for this URC Media Roundtable. If we can just go through some housekeeping. If we're going to start with immediate use. If everybody, let's start, if we can just use the raise hand function for immediate use, and we'll go through those questions. And then I think there are some journalists on here who might want some under embargo questions until tomorrow morning. Derek, I see you there. If there's anybody else who wants under embargo for tomorrow morning, perhaps just pop your hand up for me so I can see how many hands there are. And then I don't know if Johan Thormelin is already on, but I am aware that we've got a journalist, if not more, there. I see Johan, to ask questions at the end, which are under embargo for the Sunday paper. So we'll start with immediate use, and we'll get those hands up as we get started. This session is recorded. And then, without further ado, I am going to hand over to former Leinster and Ireland international Gordon Darcy and a former Western Province and Springbok captain, Cornerback Krige.
Can I test my microphone first, Shelley? Does it work?
Sorry?
Can I test my microphone? Is it working?
Yes, Derek, we can.
It does, Derek.
We can hear you.
Unfortunately, we can hear you.
Dear.
Yeah, good. Come on, Fontaine's DC. See ya. I'll be back.
Okay, so thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Gordon, for joining us. And we really, really appreciate the time you give to us to promote the United Rugby Championship. Let's ask for a show of hands to start the Q&A. Who's going to be brave enough?
I will as soon as I can't find the button. I'll just throw in one there. Hello, Corner. Hello, Gordon. Michael here in RTE Sport. How's it going?
Good, thanks.
Good. Corner, just a quick one. The Stormers' reaction to the Ospreys loss, how much of a kickback was there to that surprise result?
Yeah, there was quite a bit of a backlash on that. You know, obviously everybody was incredibly disappointed. But as you know, you can never underestimate anybody in the URC, and I don't think we underestimated them. But on the day, we really didn't play well. We didn't look after the ball, and lots of knock-ons and lots of mistakes on our side. You know, but you only play as good as you're allowed to play. So, in that sense, we were all very disappointed at the loss. But you know, taking very.
You just froze there, but I got the gist of the answer. And obviously Leinster are feeling the heat down there also. It sets it up quite nicely for a battle of the wounded beasts, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. And sorry, I can see my internet's unstable. Hopefully it'll get better. Yeah, no doubt. And I think Leinster will be hurting after that big loss against the Lions. That really was a big surprise for me, even though Leinster didn't send their first team out there. So yeah, it'll be a very good match on Saturday, that's for sure.
And quickly, Gordon, just how do you see that playing out? You know, coming off 2 defeats, Leinster they don't really have any buffer at the top of the URC as they normally have at this time of the season, so it kind of, you know, puts extra pressure on them in some regards.
Yeah, no, it massively does, and like, you know, you go from the celebration of the elation of the La Rochelle win, and then coming down and whatever about the results, I suppose they won't be particularly happy with the performance, which was very un-Leinster like. But it adds a huge amount of pressure in this week, and if you're at the Stormers now, you're looking at that going, almost rubbing your hands, the perfect match to be coming back in against. You know, it is Leinster, so it sharpens the focus, and probably looking at it a little going, and they haven't sent their first team down, and we don't know yet if some players have been sent home for Leinster to focus on the other side of the house, on the Champions Cup. So suddenly become very, very hard. This trip has become very, very hard. I think any latitude in the southern hemisphere down in South Africa is gone now. The South African teams have, more often than not, I know Stormers lost last week against a very good Ospreys team, and they have been going about their business very, very well. Probably one of the good news stories. Club rugby in Wales is probably a good news story. Where maybe the other areas not so much. The South African teams have really hit their straps at home. Where last year we saw Sam Prendergast, a few of those players showing up, and they were able to get performances and results, and that doesn't look as easy as it used to be. And just important to say, and so he said, Leinster didn't send their first team. Ospreys very much sent their full team down and went looking for a result.
Very good. I'm happy with that for live now. I might throw in one for the embargo after the lads. So thanks for that, guys.
Right, Stephen Nell, over to you. And when you ask your questions, if you can just put your cameras on, if you are able to do so, please. And after Stephen, we'll go to Philip Bendon.
Thanks very much. Sorry, guys, I've got some camera issues here. Corne, what do you think this past weekend has it possibly exposed some weaknesses with the Bulls and the Stormers? I mean, both beaten on their home ground by slick opponents. I think people possibly underestimated the Ospreys a little bit, but has it exposed any weaknesses in the Stormers and the Bulls?
I do think the Bulls, by them not sending their best team across to play Northampton and resting their top line players for this game, and then losing the game, it really has backfired against them. So I think in that sense, one weakness shown is that they're not as invincible as everybody thought they were at Loftus Versfeld, which is one weakness shown. And even if they get a home semi-final, other teams that coming to South Africa will actually start believing that they can beat them there. So that's the only thing. For the Stormers, we always try and play an entertaining game. We always throw the ball around, and we always like an open, messy game, because within messiness lies some opportunities. But because it was so messy, we really didn't have any phase. We couldn't put any phases together. It was actually quite disappointing. And as a Stormers fan and as a Stormers supporter, it's disappointing that they couldn't do the basics well. And that's the key. Key in URC is that you have to do your basics well. You have to scrum well. You have to get your lineouts, and you have to do driving mauls well. So the basics there, weren't great.
Do you see a Springbok captain in the URC at the moment? There's a lot of debate about Sia coming from overseas, potentially captaining the side. I mean, Rassie's a little bit twixt and between on that one. I mean, where are you on that issue, and what leaders do you see in the URC potentially stepping up? I see Kitsel's also injured now, so that's probably potentially takes him out of the equation. But just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, if I was Rassie, we're still 4 years out from the next World Cup, and I think my suspicion is that he wouldn't want to lose many test matches, but he will have to bleed some young talent, and a guy like Evan Roos, who was a stand-up player in a very dismal performance. He had an incredible game, and he's one of the young leaders coming through the system, so possibly looking at him. But one of the things that we as South Africans are looking at is where's the follow-up to Andre Pollard, and that's going to be the big thing that we're looking forward to in the next few months, is to see who's the next guy in line. Marnie Lebok and Andre Pollard, if they're not there, who's going to be the guy? So that's interesting. That'll be very interesting to see what's coming out of that. But I think there's so much young talent coming through the system. It's all about harnessing that talent, but also bleeding them at the right time and getting them into test match rugby And that's the one nice thing about URC. It's very close to test match rugby. It's not far off, you know. And if the guys get used to the URC and the style of play, you know, you take your 3 points when you need to. You know, I think it sets us up for a good series, international series, when the Irish are coming in and the All Blacks, obviously.
It's interesting that you mentioned Evan Roos. I guess that's a bit left field. What is it about him? Is it that he leads by example? Is that what?
Yeah, he's from schoolboy days. He's been a leader, but you know, again, if you in that position, number 8, loose forwards usually are our captains, in South Africa especially, and yeah, I just thought he had an incredible game. And it's hard to have an incredible game when everybody else around you is not playing that well. So, yeah, I was quite impressed with him. But again, there are lots of other leaders around, and but I thought for me that last weekend he really stood out.
Just for Gordon, Gordon, who's the best team in the world? You know, is it South Africa? Is it Ireland? Is it the best team in the world against the world champions? I mean, are we settling this debate in July, or do you already know the answer?
It all started out so nice and friendly. Fair play. Like, listen, it's a great question, and I think you have the world champions. By on merit, South Africa did exactly what they needed to do in the World Cup. What I loved about the South African win was they didn't let a group match derail them. And I just thought that resilience they had was that mental resilience and that fortitude when things got tough, that they were able to come back, and that was fantastic. But Ireland, obviously first back in. South Africa haven't played since the World Cup and won't have played straight out of the blocks, and came back to a little bit of form. And I think the season started to tell a little bit for Ireland towards the end of that Six Nations, and I think tired is probably the wrong word, but it definitely seemed like there was a lot of the same players playing an awful lot of the same matches, a couple of injuries, and another round or two in the Six Nations, they may not have had the legs to keep going. So I think Ireland are going to be tired coming down to South Africa. That said, I think there will be a couple of bodies coming back in. There'll be a couple of new faces, I would say, added into that squad. But it definitely, and we have 2 brilliant coaching tickets. So it is the the people's favorite versus the actual favorite, or the people's champion versus the actual champions, maybe. I'm joking. But it's a fantastic series, and one that's it is the pick of the series, I think, for me. And I just think I hope Ireland give a good account of themselves, because we know how much travel takes out of teams on the road, being away from home after the end of a long season when you guys are getting started. But it certainly won't disappoint.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Philip, over to you.
Hi, guys. Hi, Gordon. How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Good. Gordon, having been there, done that with the sort of obviously a run into a Champions Cup and getting towards the end of a URC season, how difficult is it for Leinster to manage that now? With Leo Collins traditionally, obviously, they're always there or thereabouts, so they've done a good job getting to this point. But now actually getting over the line, what do you think they need to change this season? And have you seen enough this season that they could contend on both sides?
Yeah, it's an impossible situation being a coach, really, isn't it? Why would anybody bring that on themselves? Like, you look at, say, what Jake White did, and you immediately understand the rationale of what he's saying, and is there going, how are we supposed to get ready for Munster when we have to travel up to Northampton and play, 3, and they play La Rochelle the previous week? How do we possibly do this with the limited squad that we have? So you make the best decisions that you possibly have. But look at the pressure that's just been flipped back onto Jake White now as a result of that. So Leinster have been here before. They were here last year, the year before, where they are in the top 2 or 3, they're usually top of the table almost all the time in the URC. So they earn that little bit of flexibility. They get through quarters, they get through semi-finals in the Champions Cup. But it is the paradigm has shifted with the South African teams in the URC, and the ability to compete on 2 fronts it takes an enormous effort and squad to do it. And you kind of wonder, is it going to be done in this in the way the seasons are structured? Because you look at, say, La Rochelle, all the success in the Champions Cup, but ultimately haven't won the top 14 yet. So it is a really, really big effort. So I wouldn't say that Leinster have deprioritized the URC. I think they earned it earlier in the season to be able to send down a week in the squad. But ultimately, if they lose this week, they have all but removed any flexibility in the Champions Cup. And we've seen what that materializes, because the South African teams, while their form might be a little bit patchy during the season, I don't mean that in any disrespect, they know that they hit the final run in very, very well. And you look at all the teams now, you look at Glasgow, you look at Munster, you look at Stormers, Bulls, all these teams that have run-ins, they only have to focus on one competition. Where Leinster have, one eye firmly on both competitions, and it's really hard. And I guess at some point it's going to come back and go, you have to put all your eggs into one basket, like Jake White did. But unfortunately, you get very retrospectively judged very harshly on that decision.
Yeah, no doubt at all. Thanks for that. And just there's obviously been a lot of chat about central contracts and Geordie Barrett and all of that sort of stuff. Just more focusing in on your old position. Obviously, the Irish centres have been fantastic for a long period of time at this point, but maybe there's a bit of a gap in terms of what's coming through. Have there been any centres in the URC from the Irish provinces this year that have really sort of grabbed your attention outside of sort of the big 3 of Ringrose, Henshaw and Aki?
Yeah, well, I think Cathal Ford has been really good up in Connacht, and he just needs a bit of game time. The guys, like, you look at, say, Stu McCluskey is well established and very much a senior player in North. The guy I would have liked to have seen kicked on would have been James Hume. And the other guy for me is a bit more of a utility back that is in around there is Stuart Moore. And to me, I think he's one of the best young rugby players in Ireland. Just has time on the ball, great decision making, and every time he plays, he looks good. And that kind of leads on to the obvious guy for me is Jamie Osborne. And to me, I think in 12, 24 months' time, we'll be talking about him as one of the top rugby players in the world. I think he is just an absolute Rolls Royce of a player. His decision making with ball in hand, he's 6'2". You can't coach a guy to be big. When you have a player like that has all the skill sets, because rugby is really simple in so many ways, right? It is a series of, you catch the ball, you either pass it, kick, or run. And he has all of those players that only have one of those skill sets. They can either run, or maybe they're good passes of the ball, but he has all that ability on the ball. And I think as the seasons, as the next kind of 12 months kind of roll through, we'll see him, I would say, pushing very much for starting place in Leinster and probably into the national team.
Thanks so much, Gordon.
There's loads of them.
Great to hear. And then, Corna, just one for yourself there. Obviously, the Stormers, are arguably the most successful, not even arguably, they are the most successful URC team since the new format. What do you think's changed this season in terms of consistency for them? And adding on to that, with Stephen Kitsoff coming back next season, just how much of a difference does he make to that leadership group? It was really interesting to hear you talk about Evan Ruiz as a leader, because from the outside, you don't necessarily see it, or he's a phenomenal player. But yeah, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think losing in Stephen Kitsoff late last year, takes a bit of the experience that we have in the team, took a lot of that experience out. And he himself is a great leader. He often captained the team. So I think yes, the difference this season is everybody knows how we play now. I think right in the beginning, first year we won the URC because people didn't expect anything from the Stormers. You know, we had our backs against the wall. We were under administration financially, and nobody really knew about us in terms of the way we play. You know, and so we always have parity up front, and then we just throw the ball around at the back. But in the last few years, slightly more dominance in the forwards and strong back and forwards, but also, you know, very, very dangerous in the back line. So I think one, a little bit of experience that we've lost, and two, I think people have started to look at our game and say, you know, we can put them under pressure. And I think the last year in this semi-final, in the final against Munster, you know, they smothered us up front, and once they managed to do that, our backs weren't that potent, and obviously on that specific day, Mani Lubbock didn't have a great game. So yeah, it's a combination of those two things.
That's perfect. Thank you, gents. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Right, over to Michael Flismus.
Hi, thanks, guys. I just one question for each of you, please. If I could start with you, please, Gordon. You know, Leinster have been the benchmark since the start of this competition. You know, coaches like Jake White just talking about how that model just always works, and as much as, you know, all teams are under pressure and face the same challenges with travel and fielding B teams and things like that. You know, Leinster still seem to get it right. What is it about the Leinster model that delivers that kind of sustained success with the same challenges everybody else faces?
Yeah, that's it. Like, but ultimately we haven't won a trophy in the last number of seasons. We've been thereabouts, but haven't got over the line. And the era of being able to fall back to a URC title is absolutely gone, because the teams that are once they're the majority, they're focusing the last fifth of their season, the last 8 weeks of their season purely on the URC. Means they have an advantage over Leinster when if they're competing on two fronts. What is it? I think like the model has always been in Leinster that you have homegrown Indigenous players, and you sprinkle in kind of a bit of star quality in around them, and it's always, and to take a little bit of Razzism, it's about getting good people, not the best players. So, you know, some of the quality players that we've had, they have been world class, but they are players that go above and beyond. So whether that was Isa Nasewa or Rocky Elmson, whoever they might have been, Scott Fardy, Jordy Barrett coming in next year, these guys, they just add so much to the homegrown talent. And a little bit like you have in South Africa, you have a kind of school system that is almost feverish, and it's very, very competitive. Leinster has a school system that is hugely, hugely competitive. So these players are going through that system. Corné mentioned about Evan Roos, you know, coming through the schoolboy. Like these kids are coming at, you can see them at 16, 17, 18 years of age, and they come in, and the only team they want to play for is Leinster. So they have that drive to come into, and, you know, over the years, over the professionalism, they've refined how players come through in certain positions, in certain styles. And once they come in, it's just that conveyor belt of players every year, and you know, and the competitiveness within the squad and within the organization is huge. So there's a big turnover of players that just haven't made the graduation from, say, the Leinster Academy into the senior team, and they'll be, you know, there is a ruthless side to that as well. So competition is key. And as a result of that, then you have a lot of these. We have inadvertently become the main feeder into the national team.
Thanks so much, Gordon. I appreciate it. And then just one more for Corne, please. We're approaching, last couple of rounds before the playoffs. In your mind, is it sort of locked in? I know it's been pretty tight at the moment on the table, or is there a team for you just outside that top 8 that you would be saying could potentially still cause an upset and force away in?
Yeah, it's a tough one. If there are 2 South African teams in the mix there, possibly even a third, the Lions might still slip in. I think there's 11 teams competing for 8 places. So my gut feel is that anybody who has to go to Leinster and play a home game there in the final probably won't win that game. So if the South Africans can get somewhere close to a home quarterfinal and a home semi-final, then that'll change the game a little bit. But in the way I've seen Leinster play, they're going to be very difficult to beat.
Okay, so thanks very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Stephen L., is that an old hand or a new hand?
I would like to. It's a new hand. Thanks.
Okay, go ahead. And then
Okay.
any other hands? Please put your hands up. Thank you, Mubin. I see you. You can go after Stephen.
Thanks. Corne, you spoke just now about youth and so on, towards the next World Cup. I mean, how would you reconcile that, against keeping some of the experience? Now, because obviously if you bring in a young captain, then that captain has got to lead, very experienced players, I guess. So, how do you balance that? Is that not an awkward scenario? I mean, just from experience, you've been in international teams and understand that whole dynamic.
Yeah, it's a good question, Stephen. I captained the Springboks on my debut in a debut match, and so at some point you have to give somebody that experience, and the only way you give them the experience is to actually let them play and be the captain in a very important test match, as all test matches are important. I think fortunately for me, my first test match was against Italy, so it wasn't that bad. But I really don't think Rassie will risk picking a young captain against Ireland or New Zealand. I think he'll go with the tried and tested, and then mix in a little bit of youth inside in the team. But at some point during the year, when there's let's call it a slightly easier test matches, which you don't really get anymore, I think he'd try and bleed a young captain, because, to be honest, Sia's unbelievable, and we hope he's going to make the next World Cup. But chances are, if one more big injury, you probably won't make it. So we've got to start looking at a new leader, and I'm sure there's lots of them in the system. If I look at our school system, and Gordon was talking about the school system in around Leinster, if I look in the Cape, there's so many good schools here with rugby schools, and they're just churning out talent. A lot of them are going to the Sharks. A lot of them are going to the Lions. And the big thing is that it's about harnessing that talent and making sure that at a young age they get the right coaching, and that they get the right mentoring system going, because there's more than enough talent. It's more about what happens to the individual mentally once he gets out of school and taking that next step into provincial rugby, but then into international rugby. But yeah, I think my gut feel will be that Rassie will pick the tried and tested for now.
So would that be your approach as well? When you talk about young captains and so on, looking at games against Portugal, Wales, etc., and then for the time being tried and tested, or because I just want to clarify that.
Portugal, definitely, possibly a new captain. Ireland, New Zealand, no, go with the tried and tested.
Just for Gordon, Munster beating the Bulls in Pretoria, I mean, that is a big result. Does that say anything before heading into the playoffs. Just that, was that a little bit of a statement win there?
Yeah, I think it was. I think definitely. I think a couple of things obviously went in their favor. Red card, a bananas tackle from Goosen on Craig Casey. It still blows my mind that players can't get their head around the fact that if they hit someone in the head, they're going to be red carded. So that completely changed the dynamic of it. You could see Munster were very much counter punching against kind of an onslaught from the Bulls, and you kind of felt that the Bulls would have had a fair chance of winning that game had they 15 players on the pitch. But I think what's come around for Munster is, I think some of their tired players like Tyg Byrne look refreshed from having a week off. And they're benefiting from having a settled team going in. You look at the centre partnerships, the halfback, the back row. They've got an awful lot of settled partnerships within that team, and they were able to rotate. Tom Ahern went onto the bench. RG comes back on. Candellin plays at 7. Hodnett plays. So they actually, the squad, they're positioned. They were positioned well for this, and they met the challenge. They kind of went, "We're going to South Africa and we're looking for results," and they played like they scored some wonderful tries. So I think when we looked at it beforehand, you were kind of thinking it was too big of a challenge, and you put the logical head on and you go, how did Munster win that? And then, as the match transpired, that's exactly how you did it. They're a team, and I think any of the off-field issues around, say, contracts or players coming or going, whether Peter Manny was staying, that's all been resolved, and players were able to get back about just the job at hand, which was playing rugby. And I think Munster are really well coached now. And I think that's in, and they have all that legacy memory from last season where they did it the hard way, and that win just really, really, really pushes them up now in pushing for that top couple of places in the table. So they take an awful lot of heart from it.
Cool, thanks.
Mubin, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Shirley. Hi, Corne. Just a question for you. Corne, as a former Springbok flank and also captain, just your thoughts on Hachiva Damani. Do you feel that he's unlucky not to be selected for, the first Springbok alignment camp that Massey had? Just what's your thoughts on him? And do you think he should be selected in the future as well?
Corne, you're on mute.
I'm a Stormers fan, and I really love Hachiva Damani. I love his story. I love the way he plays. He's an intelligent player. He has a phenomenal step. He's got great hands, and surely he deserves to get an opportunity there. But his position is number 8, and Evan Rosa has been in the alignment camps before, and he actually was in the Springbok team. He's played 1 or 2 test matches. He was very unlucky not to get to the World Cup last year. If it wasn't for Dwayne Vermeulen playing some unbelievable rugby at the ripe old age of 35 plus, I think Evan would have been there. But I really like Hachiva Damani, and I'm sure if he carries on playing the way he's playing, he has to get an opportunity somewhere.
And then just my last question as well. Given that, just to follow up on Michael's question and Philip as well, given that the Stormers have had a bit of an inconsistent season so far, they've been a bit too loose, been a bit messy, they've won a bit ugly sometimes. Do you feel that this season they can still make the playoffs firstly and possibly make a third final?
Yeah, they're right in there. I mean, they're still top 6, and they top 8 go through. So the big thing is you've got to try and play at home at some point. So if with so many teams above them, it's going to be very hard. If they're going to play 2 away games, let's play 3 quarters, semis, and finals will be away from home. I don't think that's ever been done from a South African perspective. So they're still in the mix. They're always a very dangerous team. You can never underestimate them. You never know what's going to come out of that team. And they are very resilient, and they've got an incredible coach who knows how to motivate them. So hopefully they'll be right up there. But it's going to be tough if they don't go high up in the ranks, in the top, at least top 4.
And just my final question, Corne, is there any other player on the sort of Springbok radar that you would select from all 4 South African franchises, that anyone, black iron forwards who have really impressed you and should be considered for Springbok duty this year?
Yeah, Sasha Ngomezulu for me is an unbelievable player. Like Gordon said earlier, you know, he's got the size, he's got the skill, he's got everything you need for international rugby, and I have no doubt he'll be in the mix if he doesn't get any injuries, because he's a very physical player. He doesn't mind a bit of contact. So yeah, he's for me is a standout guy who really has shown he can do quite a lot with the ball in hand.
Thanks, Corne. Thanks, Shelly.
Right. I don't see any more hands for questions for immediate use. So unless you tell me otherwise, or the raise of a hand, I think I'm going to move into questions that will be under embargo for tomorrow morning. So Derek, yes, I see you there. I'll go straight to you, Derek. If there's anybody else for use publishing tomorrow, just pop your hand up. Over to you, Derek.
Hi, Corne. I'll just start with you. I've sort of one quick, if you could give me one line answer to this. Victor Matfield was very positive about Jason Jenkins coming into the squad over the summer. He seemed to feel Jason should have been in the World Cup squad, and then he felt that going forward that he's the perfect understudy for Estebet. So going back to my South African colleague's question, do you see Jenkins, who's playing very well at the moment, as a contender for the box this summer?
Yes, I do. I think he's a genuine contender, but Ruben van Heerden in the lock position is also playing some unbelievable rugby. If you look at the stats, he's right up there with the lineouts and ball carries and attempted tackles. So he's an incredible player. But Jason Jenkins, I like him because he can play loose forward and in the lock position. Very, very good player.
Okay. Now, this is a broader question, and one that's becoming, I think it's becoming a topic. Is Ireland and South Africa in danger of, in a nice way, of becoming one of the great sporting rivalries? It's happening at URC level very much. That Bulls thing at the weekend, you know, Jake White's after-match conference following the game over here, where he talked about just not having a bench, basically just throwing in the towel once he wasn't ahead after 60 minutes. He had no chance. We're now going to step this up. We've got the World Cup in the back, and then we've got this series coming up in the summer. And I can tell you, Ireland want to win this series. Andy Farrell's made no mistake, both up front to the media, to his players, behind the scenes, to his staff. He's gone over there to win, and he is mentally very, very strong. Are we seeing the building of almost a volcano towards the next World Cup? Or are you still their biggest rivals, New Zealand? I mean, tell me. I mean,
Traditionally, you know, New Zealand won because they are the one other team that physically can match our play. But over the last few years, obviously, Ireland have become very physical as well. You know, you just have to look at Bandi Aki to see how physical they are. So I think, because of the history with the All Blacks and South Africa, I think they'll still be our traditional rivals. But more and more, as Ireland, you know, come into the picture in terms of physicality and the way they play, and the entertaining rugby that they play, you know, it's going to become one of the big rivalries in the world. That's for sure.
Mark my words, Andy Farrell is obsessed by you guys. He's obsessed. Gordon. Pushing aside the main topic of whether Lancome or Fontaine's DC should have won the Choice Award this year, the South Africa Ireland rivalry, how do you see that building? And what was that rivalry like in your day? Because you didn't have URC. That's for Gordon, by the way. Where are you, Gordon?
Yeah, My first tour was down to South Africa. So I remember I think we were playing up in Pretoria somewhere, and big giant gates. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
Loftus
yeah. So you were
and we'd stuck
13,000
and
feet
being,
above sea level, yeah, or whatever.
yeah, but we were left on the bus as the crowd. So they left the gates closed, and then as the crowd was coming in, and they just started rocking the bus from side to side, and I was like, "Oh, crikey! Welcome to South Africa, one of the most intimidating places I've played in." It was pretty interesting. I think my observation of South Africa over is like in between World Cup cycles, particularly in maybe the last 12 years, has been that they have the ability to, when I say, to try things a little bit more, and there's a little bit more flexibility from say their fans, because they get the results at the biggest stage. I think we've had pretty good success. We won that series down there with CJ and Paddy Jackson and that crew that went down. I think that was 2016 maybe, or 17. I think somewhere around that. We won the series down there, and we've had good success against South Africa in Ireland. Like, you go back to the November series just before the World Cup, where again South Africa tried Wilmse at 10, and they played him for 3 games to see was he a 10, and then at the end of those 3 games, I'm not sure if they won any of them. They didn't win against us. It was clear as day. Dalen Wilmse is not a 10. He is an excellent broken field player that is out. His ability to direct and to control games probably not at the level that they needed, and as a result, he became playing in the position he's most comfortable in 15. But they were trying to find where that could they find another option at 10, and they gave him 3 internationals to be able to do it. But then they get that back. And these are the decisions you make as a coach. They get that back in later in the World Cup. So it is definitely a rivalry. And kind of as I said earlier, Andy Farrell, Ireland have to target every competition, nearly every match they play. There's very few games where they would actually rotate or try and give players, not give them caps, but see what they can do in this. So I think the way you set the scene for the summer, Ireland will be looking for another series win there. And I've no doubt that's going to bring the best out of South Africa, because they're a competitive bunch at the best of times.
Right. So Leinster have, I'm just curious to their URC stuff at the moment. I've never known Leinster not answer a question kind of truthfully, but Leo avoided on Monday. He actually wouldn't say what players he'd flown out and who'd flown back. He's actually kept that under wraps. So he may have flown. So we don't know. No, it's not. You know what Leo's like. He's very open. He's very, very, very good in the media. It's unusual that they would pull a stunt like that. Were you guys a bit nervous in the run to Croke Park back in the day? Is there a possibility that the club, big as it is looking at what is, and you know how important Croke Park is. I mean, it's just a sensational place with the history and everything. Is there a possibility that there's a little bit going on behind the scenes?
I wouldn't think so. I think that Leinster have I suppose how I said it, that if they lose these 2 games, they lose all their wiggle room. I think they're quite happy to lose that wiggle room to get ready for the semi-finals and to be ready for the home run in. And they're kind of saying, okay, well, whatever we lose by those 2 results, we'll plan out the run into the season. I think the Croke Park piece is hugely special for a lot of these players, but I don't think it has the same. It would be special. I don't think it has the same historic importance to the first match that was there, and I think that has been bridged, and that has happened. And now it is just going to be one of those things that they're again a unique group of players that get to play in Croke Park. But I don't think the emotional attachment will be there that was in the first game. that we played, because it wasn't there in the second game that we played, or the third or the fourth game in there. So I think that is, I think they're just want to get comfortable in the environment, and that'll be it. But I don't think the same emotional piece will be there, because that was the difference in that opener against France. That we were almost emotionally spent by the time the ball kicked off.
Okay, and just for history's sake, was it Brian's pass or Isa's pass that was the key to your key try in 2009?
Oh, 2009. It was.
I looked at
it
it
was
again
both
and
of them.
again during the week.
It was the. Well, it's like with anything. If the move didn't go like that. It wasn't meant to be hitting Isa short. It was meant to be hitting me out the back. But the way Earlsey defended, the no-look pass and the show-off from Brian was the best one. And then Isa just floated it out. But I'd say in all the combinations we'd run that, we'd never run it that exact way ever.
Good, there's a piece of news for information. Right, you used some brilliant footwork talking about the problem Leinster have in midfield. Right, so what way would you pick your current Leinster midfield? What way would you pick it next year, and what way would Ireland pick it at the World Cup? So you've got to start with where you're going to put Robbie Henshaw, and then
at the moment I don't. At the moment, I wouldn't. I would pick. I'll pick Jamie Osborne and Robbie Henshaw at the moment, and that might feel a little harsh on Gary Ringrose, and it is, but there's nothing to suggest that you would split them up at the moment.
Right. So when that means that, so I said Andrew, didn't I? And I keep meaning to say Jamie, and he hangs around with my daughter. Like, you think I'd get his name right? So Jamie, you see as the 12 going forward. I mean, he's a big guy.
No. Just at the moment, I think he offers. I think at the moment he offers that gain line, as well as that kind of second 5'8" distributor in there. Strong kicking game. I think he's quintessentially what a 12 would be, and that's not to say that Robbie Henshaw isn't. Robbie Henshaw at the moment is really, really comfortable in 13 jersey. So it'd be hard to move him out of there at the moment. And that would just be that piece there. Yeah. And through an injury, the onus is on Gary Ringrose to come back in and to come up to that standard to force a decision by the coaches.
Would you see that as going forward, the Irish international World Cup pairing? Jamie at 12 and Robbie at 13.
I think Bundy will have a fair bit to say about that. I'm sure Stu McCluskey will throw his hat in, and it's not to avoid the answer. It's an impossible one to say. I just think there's a lot to be excited about Jamie Osborne. He gives something that not every player in the Irish outside backs has, a little bit of air of unpredictability.
Okay, just last personal one for me, and you can answer this really quickly. Have you ever heard from Rocky Elsom since, or is he just somebody who picked up his gear bag and left?
No, I have through a friend through a mutual friend. I have. He needed his drum kit shipped back to Australia. So
his drum kit? How did he put it in the Daihatsu charade? That's
one of life's mysteries.
Thank you. Right, over to Michael Glennon. I see you've got your hand up. Thank you.
Thanks again. I've no music questions, Gordon. Just on Croke Park, obviously the historical, you spoke about that and what it means. Was there anything on the playing pitch or the surface or the stadium itself that was slightly different, wind or anything like that you had to get used to?
No, like genuinely, I just remember just being, the weight of privilege and honor being there, playing too much of a toll. And I can't remember who wrote it or who suggested it, saying there should have been a match there to almost break the thing, and that's the benefit of hindsight 2020. But I just remember, you looked at you looked at Bull Hayes, you looked at Flannery. Everybody was just emotionally too high, too early in a game. In some ways, quite poetic, because that you'd often accuse that of GAA teams. 15 minutes out from the game, and they're like, overly, thumping heads off each other and getting ready for it, and then they've got to go through all the anthems and everything, and there's that emotional peak, and then they come down, and then you actually, I've got a whole game to play here. But no, nothing about it. Just pitch was awesome.
I'm surprised the South Africans didn't pipe up there. I think you gave us a series win in 2016 there where we didn't deserve it earlier on. We won the first test, all right, but we didn't win the second or the third.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
We won the match in first time winning in South Africa.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not at all.
Perfect.
Just on Northampton and Leinster, does it help Leinster? Is it a distraction or is it not relevant at all? Northampton are in a competition that they would see equal to, they're leading a competition, the Premiership, that they would see as equal value to the European Cup. I mean, is it set up for Leinster again? Is there anything to be read into how that would affect Northampton?
I think the home advantage is massive. And Cornet's kind of has alluded to that with, that's the ace in the hole that Leinster want in the URC. They want that top spot finish, so they have quarters, semis, finals in Dublin. They want that, and that is a material difference. We saw what La Rochelle were like, having to go on the road down to Bulls, got the win by the skin of their teeth. But when you're on the road, when you're traveling, it takes a physical, less a physical, it just takes a mental toll. And that impossible situation of being the human condition, you can't insulate from every eventuality. So there is, in the Six Nations, it's about 75% in favour of the home, in the home nation, and that's with Italy having a relatively poor home record. So it is, and always has been, very heavily in favour of the home nation. So I think of the home team. So I think Leo, the guys, they will be very, very much focusing on what do they control in their environment, where they are, get players used to that environment, and just go. And he'll be putting an awful lot of kind of positive pressure onto them, saying, listen, stadium sold out in 15, 20 minutes. We need to show up for these players, these people.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks for your time.
Right. I am very conscious of time. We only have 5 minutes left, and I do need to offer up some under embargo for the Sunday papers. So, Stephen, I see your hand is still up. Old hand, new hand. Do you have a quick question? Otherwise, I am going to have to move on to the Sunday papers.
Yeah, just a quick one for Cornet, please. Cornet, with the Stormers, there's a commitment there to a certain way of playing. Even if they're in trouble, they don't go conservative. Do you think they must always stay true to that, or do you think they could possibly also make some kind of tweaks to their game plan to in situations be more pragmatic?
Well, as they say, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. It's worked for them in the past, and I'm sure it'll work for them going forward. I do, as a more conservative player, I sometimes feel that they should be, being a little bit more conservative, playing a tighter game, but it works for them, and somehow they always get out of trouble. And unfortunately, in this game, they didn't, So I hope it doesn't scare them, and that's why the stadium's mostly full. Full in terms of international standards. The bottom rows at Cape Town Stadium are full now, but really, the people love the way they play, the exciting rugby that they play, and I don't think they'll change. It's quite easy to play against them because you know what they're going to do, but it's like playing against the Bulls in the old days. You knew they were going to play with their forwards, but welcome to try and stop them. It's very hard to stop them. So the exciting rugby is awesome, and I hope they continue to play it.
Cool. Thanks, Cornet.
Right. Thank you. So just before we close up shop, if Gordon and Cornet, if you can just stay on, and Johan and anybody else who's on for the Sunday papers, I'm going to bid farewell to everybody else. Thank you very much for joining us. Just a little reminder, we will send out the recording from the session to everybody who's on the session. And also just a reminder, if you are reporting in the north, if you could please refer to it as the BKT URC or BKT United Rugby Championship. And in South Africa, it is the Vodacom URC. Thank you very much. If the Sunday papers can just stay on, please. Johan, I know you're listening. Do you have a question for both Gordon and Cornet, or just Cornet?
Can you hear me, Shirley?
I can, yes.
Yes, I have for both of them. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Just hang tight while everybody else leaves the meeting. Well, obviously, Jason, I see you there. You can stay. Simon.
Shelley, either Sunday too.
Okay, super. Derek, that's good. I just want to make sure that everybody is gone. That is not on the Sundays. Right, Derek, we've got you. Jason, you're good. Johan, you're fine. Simon, you're fine. Just a reminder, this is under embargo for publishing on Sunday only. Johan, let me just see. Derek, let me go to you first, Derek, if you want to continue your questioning, and we'll move on to the others.
Okay. The URC this year is going to go all the way to the wire. Can you give me a winner? Both of you.
You go first, Gordon.
I was going to say the same thing to you. You like the crystal ball ones. I tell you what, let's go with I think we'll go with I think Leinster will be in the final, and I think it will be a South African team there with them. How's that?
Okay,
as close as I can do.
Just as a corollary to that, then, does Munster's win in the Loftus Versfeld just drag the South African back a percent, in a sense that people would have looked at Ospreys and Munster and said, "Whoops, it is possible to win out there." That was both their first defeats, wasn't it, at home this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Gordon,
I don't know about you. Yeah, I think for me, I think it just shows I suppose what's needed to win down there. And like Munster went fully loaded, Ospreys went fully loaded. I don't think it changes things. I don't think it just shows how competitive the URC is. And Munster, they're out of the Champions Cup, so they have fully focused on the URC. And as much as, say, the Northern Hemisphere teams, and I think we're still recalibrating across the URC at the moment. And it's fair to say that the Northern Hemisphere teams, it took them a little bit of time to get used to the kind of the late challenge of the South African teams, because I suppose that South African mentality of really, they just almost grow 2 inches for the big matches, for the knockout matches. It just seems to be, they just love that kind of pressure. I think the South African teams probably have to reflect that now with the Northern Hemisphere teams, that that they're as motivated with this as well. And I'd say, maybe one eye was maybe kind of going, oh, they're traveling down here. They put maybe too much stock in the home advantages. Maybe what I'm trying to put at it, where Munster kind of, and the Ospreys put a huge amount of focus on maybe catching them and trying to get that result. But I think that will, as I say, so last year you have the recalibration from the Northern Hemisphere sides, and this time maybe you're just getting a little bit of that with the South African teams.
I just want to be respectful of Gordon and Cornet's time. I'm sorry, we are running a couple of minutes over, but if I can go over to Johan for your questions, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. So firstly, to Gordon, I just want to get your take on, say, South African teams joining the URC and tournaments in Europe. Like, what was the feeling in Ireland? Are you impressed? Has it been a good addition to the competition? Are you guys positive about that? Because I know when it started out, there might have been different opinions.
Yeah, but listen, you look at I thought the Lions at the weekend, they played some fantastic rugby, and beat Leinster quite comprehensively. but they're playing good rugby. They're bringing an added dimension, and I think the tournament they have added to the tournament, and I think they're evolving the way they play as well to reflect of it. So it's been nothing but a positive for the URC as a tournament. How they contribute into the Champions Cup, I think there are challenges there that are clear and obvious, and they are probably more detrimental to the South African teams than they are to anybody else. So the travel piece and the scheduling is an issue, but I'm sure that can be worked out over time. But yeah, I think they've added so much, and I think they're evolving the way they play, which has been a huge positive for the URC.
Thanks. Just a second one for you, and then I have two for Corner as well. You mentioned you guys talked about the Irish Springboks Test series coming up. If you specifically move to the midfield battle, you talked about the Irish players, but it was at the World Cup. It was Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose, and for South Africa it was Damian Dailenda and Jesse Kriel. Obviously, Lukhanyo might come in for South Africa there. What do you make about the centre battle that we can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure there's plenty of players playing in South Africa, and one of the things about Rassie is rewards players and wants to get them in there. But like Lukhanyo for me has been one of the most impressive players in World Rugby for a period of time, and I think the injury before the World Cup, we kind of robbed him of. Robbed World Rugby of a player of his caliber, but then you look at what, say, Jesse Kriel did in the World Cup, and it wasn't just about getting over the gain line. Some of his defensive stuff was incredible, but his overall rugby, again, a little bit like Robbie Henshaw, he just thrived in getting regular game time, and him and Dailenda have got a fantastic centre partnership. But I think it'll be a very, very important battle. In South Africa, we know how important the gain line is, and teams that win the gain line, both like to play. Ireland like to play that fast tempo game, so winning the gain line is so important. And it didn't disappoint in the World Cup. I'd be very surprised if it disappointed in the summer.
Thanks very much. Corner, just you did talk about the Chiba Diamani and a few other loose forwards. Seeing that you played there for South Africa, are there any youngsters you think that might in the URC that has impressed you and that you think might get a nod in the Springbok squad, or will they stick to the same team? And even if they do stick to the same, who are the youngsters that have impressed you in the URC?
Yeah, as the two that I've mentioned, obviously because they're from the Stormers. But the Bulls have got a very good loose trio as well. The combination of somebody on the ground, somebody who's quite short and stocky who can play to the ball, and that's something that South Africa needs. We're great at defense, but if you look at the attack at the moment, if you don't have somebody contesting for the ball on the ground, it makes life very difficult for you. So my gut feel is that Rassie and his team will be looking at an open side flanker type guy who goes to the ball, and obviously the Bulls have two of them, I think. And the eighth man, I forgot his name now. He's really good.
Cameron Honeycomb.
Yeah, Cameron, but also the other one.
Mpilo Gumede.
Yeah, there's three of them actually. So they're all physical players, like to take the ball up, very good with ball in hand. So, but it's always about a combination and picking a combination of players, that complement each other. So yeah, it'll be Kwagga. I'm sure he'll be there, and he's the guy that goes to the ball. But there's some really nice young talent coming through the system.
Then the last one from my side. So also for Corner, so the Springboks have made a few changes, not just. We'll maybe not see a lot of changes on the field, but next to the field with Jerry Flannery and Tony Brown coming in to the coaching staff. Obviously, Felix Jones and Jacques Nienaber has moved on. What do you think will be the difference in outlook maybe with Jerry and Tony coming in? And do you think the losses will be bigger than the gains, or what do you think about that?
No, I think the gains will be big. Tony Brown is one of the most intelligent players I've ever played against. He his vision for the game is very different to anybody, you know. So I think he's going to be he's a great asset to the Springboks, and Jerry Flannery as well. You know, he's a man who knows what physicality is all about, and so the two of them I think will bring a really different dimension, and that's what Russ is looking at. You know, to be one-dimensional in international rugby, never mind international sport, really, you know, doesn't do you any favors, because people analyze you and they say this is how you play. But if you look at the Springboks and how they won that World Cup, you know, you could never predict what they were going to do. The one game they kicked most of the balls, the next thing they're running the ball out of the own 22. So that unpredictability is crucial for us, and I think Tony Brown especially is going to bring some magic to that team.
Right. I actually just got a message from Johan. He said he's hearing you, but he's got internet issues. So I think, sorry we went over. My sincere apologies, but I think that's it for us for today. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Gordon. Signing out. Much appreciated.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers, Shirley. Cheers, guys.